So a very good evening to everyone. I'm sorry we started late, but, well, you know how it is. Indian Standard Time, we all take our time in enjoying the evening. Can I request the guests please to come on stage? Because I'd like to introduce you. On behalf of Living Free Pune, I extend a warm and hearty welcome to each one of you here. First of all, I'd like to thank each one of you for choosing to spend time with us this evening. And I'm sure you'll enjoy this one-of-a-kind evening immensely. Before we commence with the event, I'd like to tell you about today's program and guests very briefly. So today's talk is about interconnectedness and social harmony. I won't say much about it because you'll come to know as Dr. Will Tuttle talks. It's a topic that's rarely covered, and we're going to be so happy to make connections that we never thought of before. So it's going to be something that's really going to inspire us. Let me now introduce you to our remarkable guests. It's an honor and privilege to talk to you about an outstanding personality who has helped thousands across the world to make compassionate choices. Dr. Will Tuttle's life-changing talk on food and healing and living a sustainable lifestyle is going to be combined with original piano music that he's composed. His beautiful wife, Madeline, will accompany him on the silver flute. Visionary speaker, educator, musician, and author of the best-selling book, The World Peace Diet, Dr. Will Tuttle has presented 100 to 150 lectures, workshops, and concerts every year since 1995 in the US and Europe. Because of his impressive work, he's received the prestigious Peace Abbey's Courage of Conscience Award, which is conferred upon the likes of Nelson Mandela and Mother Teresa. Vegan for the last 37 years, he's done immense research into eating attitudes, and his presentations are intended to bring inspiration, healing, and awakening. He also offers online training in the main ideas of his book. A former Zen monk with a PhD from UC Berkeley and a vegan since 1980, his writings, music, and presentations focus on compassion, creativity, intuition, and the intersection of social justice, animal liberation, and environmental, health, spiritual, and peace issues. The creator of several wellness and advocacy training programs, he's also co-creator of Vegan Palooza, the largest online vegan event. Madeline Tuttle is a visionary artist from Switzerland and a partner in all his wonderful talks around the world. We are so happy to have her with us today because together they create a conscious mood through their music to connect with their audience, and we are going to experience that magic today. Madeline's deep love for all creation lights her work. Her creative blending of vibrant and delicate colors reveals some of her vision that there is a mysteriously unifying life to be explored and celebrated. Her visionary art is exhibited throughout North America and Europe. You can find the magic of their music and art on their website called Karuna Music and Art. The Tuttles are accompanied by Philip Nicosis of USA's Hippocrates Health Institute and is a dear friend of theirs. Philip Nicosis is a vegan activist and World Peace Diet facilitator. He's an experienced businessman, real estate investor, a paddy dive master, published songwriter and musician, and physical culturist who changed his health and his heart with a switch to a plant-based diet. Based in Florida, Nicosis is currently traveling with remoteyear.com, an organization that brings together a community of location-independent professionals from across the globe to spend a year working, traveling, and exploring. The entire Will Tuttle India tour has been organized by Shankar Narayan ji, a vegan for over 16 years. He founded the Sattvic Vegan Society in 2004. It was formerly known as the Indian Vegan Society and is based in Bindur, Udupi district. I've known him for several years through FIAPO and the vegan community, and his gentle manner has won over many hearts. He organizes a vegan fest every year, and he's just celebrated his 15th vegan fest in 2017. I suggest everyone here who can take part in the next one. It's, I believe, in August 2018, right? So the experience, I believe, is a truly memorable one. A few words about the book that Dr. Will Tuttle has authored. The World Peace Diet has been called one of the most important books of the 21st century. It's the foundation of a new society honoring the interconnectedness of life. It's one of the first books to make explicit the hidden connections between our culture, our food, and the source of our broad range of problems, and the way to a positive transformation in our individual and collective lives. His perception of veganism is a modern expression of ahimsa, the ancient core of all spiritual teachings, which is nonviolence. He says, whatever we sow, we will inevitably reap, and the key to happiness lies in blessing others and being loving and kind to all beings. Violence in word, thought, and deed harms oneself more than it does others. I need not say more, as he'll himself show us how much more beautiful our world can become. We usually light a lamp to mark the beginning of any program. Today, we've decided to do something different, but more in alignment with the talk today. We're going to plant 3 different saplings in honor of our guests, which we will nurture and ensure grow into beautiful plants in the years to come. We have a mango sapling, a jackfruit sapling, and karvanda. Karvanda is known as Bengal currant or Christ's thorn in English. It's a hardy, drought-tolerant plant and produces berry-sized fruits that are commonly used as a condiment in Indian pickles and spices. Many of us who have experienced, nature have also plucked it off and eaten it just as it is. We know nature works in wonderful ways. We specifically chose the karvanda because it multiplies when birds eat the berries and drop the seeds somewhere else. We hope that this forgotten wild berry sapling will help support the ecosystem around us and help us introduce it back into our diets. All these 3 saplings are original varieties and not the hybrid kind, so they're absolutely native. Dr. Will Tuttle and his wife are an inspiration because of the beautiful connection they have, and we can't think of them as separate, so we are planting 1 sapling in their name, 1 in Philip Nikosis's name, and the 3rd in Shankar Narayanji's name. I request our guests to please come to the pots, and we can water these saplings as a symbolic gesture. So we will plant them later in an area where we can look after them so we can keep our guests informed of their growth, and we will be posting about it on our website every 6 months, a year. So thank you so much, and I request Dr. Will Tuttle to please take over and enlighten us and take the evening over. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was a beautiful ceremony, and I'm really delighted to be here with all of you in Pune. Now, let's hear it now. A big round of applause for all the organizers in this beautiful city of Pune for this event. Really, a lot of work has gone into this, I know, and it's fantastic. So let's see where to begin here. I think what I'd like to do, actually, just to start off, since we have a beautiful Hawaii piano, is play a short piece of original music and then get into some of the ideas in the World Peace Diet. And so I'd like to play a piece called Dance for the Arctic Moon. This is a piece, the symbolism for me, the moon represents the sacred feminine dimension of consciousness that dwells within all of us, whether we're men or women, of receptivity to a higher awareness. And the moon typically represents spiritual illumination or enlightenment or awakening. So I'd like to begin the presentation this evening by inviting all of us, as we're listening to the music, to just connect with our own inner wisdom and sense of being part of an unfoldment of consciousness among human beings on this earth for a new way of living based on kindness, compassion, and respect for all living beings. That this is a movement that's growing, not only in India, where it has deep roots, but it's growing throughout Asia, Europe, North and South America, Africa, everywhere, and that we're part of that. We're fortunate to be part of this movement. So this is Dance for the Arctic Moon. Enjoy. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's delightful to be with you. And behind me, we have some paintings by my wonderful spouse, Madeline. And as you're listening to the music and as you're listening to me speaking, please also partake of the paintings, because I think they speak perhaps more eloquently than I can ever speak. When we look into the eyes of animals, we can, I think, in many ways connect with a deeper sense of understanding the plight that not only they are in, but also our earth is in, and really we are in, because as we abuse and confine and harm these other beings, we're actually in many ways destroying our own capacities for wisdom and intelligence and sustainability and health in our own society. And so I think as we look at these beings and see perhaps how they're responding and would like to be liberated, I think we can learn a lot from that. So I'd like to speak about a few of the main ideas in the World Peace Diet and intersperse that and weave that in with some music and with the art behind. Some of the music will be solo piano and some will be with Madeline on the silver flute. I want to just ask at the beginning, how many of you have read the World Peace Diet at this point? Just a few probably? Yeah, great. So we don't have any copies of the books. We do have it, we're out of the audiobooks too, but you can definitely download an audiobook, which is me reading the book, or get it on Kindle or that kind of thing, or order it on Amazon. We're hoping to have it published by an Indian publisher and have it available that way too at some point. So I just wanted to mention that. And also, just if you're interested, we do have copies of meditations that are with my voice and music. One on the four Viharas, which is love, compassion, joy, and peace, an ancient meditation practice that goes back probably at least 3,000 years, beginning here actually originally in India. And another one, World Peace Meditations, which includes a lot of what we'll be talking about this evening, and then one of music, of piano and flute, with myself and Madeline, called Inspiration. Because I think it's really helpful for us to realize that what we're talking about this evening is a transformation of our consciousness. It's both an inner, I think, transformation, and meditation and music and art, I think, are very helpful in making that kind of a change, because even though it's an outer behavioral change, we're talking a lot about stopping our eating and paying for animal-based foods. But there's really, I think, a deeper message here, which is a message of interconnectedness, of kindness, of respect, and of not only respect for animals and ecosystems and other people, but really a respect for ourselves and the yearning to not only liberate them, but to liberate ourselves and our loved ones from a system that in many ways is more devastating, I think, than we realize. Part of the problem is that animal agriculture is portrayed in our culture as something necessary, that it's something that's been happening for a long time. It's sort of this ancient kind of thing that we've lived with, and that it's somehow benevolent, that animal foods provide us with necessary nutrients, that we need to be healthy. So we just have to kind of live with this. We know that cows and pigs and chickens and other animals, fishes, suffer terribly at our hands when we kill them and eat them, or when we confine them or impregnate them against their will, steal their milk, steal their babies. You know, this whole system of imprisonment and domination and exploitation of animals is something that we feel, I think many of us, is just sort of part of the way things are, because we're superior and they're inferior. So what I'd like to do is just present another way of looking at this whole thing that has enormous capacities and consequences, I think, for helping to positively transform our world, and that has roots in the ancient wisdom traditions, really from India, I think, especially from India. The vegetarian message, I think, goes back thousands of years to ahimsa. I myself, growing up in Massachusetts when I was a little kid, I was fortunate, I think, in some ways, to grow up in Concord, Massachusetts, because that's where there were the very first transcendentalists, they were called, Emerson and Thoreau and Alcott, these philosophers in the 1850s, who really got their inspiration from the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads, the Vedas. A lot of the Mahabharata and the other ancient writings from India were just, for the first time, were being translated into the European languages. And it really reinvigorated, in many ways, Western philosophy and way of living. And these were some of the very first vegetarians and vegans in North America were inspired, of course, by these Indian teachings. And we even had where we live in Concord, the very first vegan community. And it was before the word vegan. The word vegan wasn't even invented until 1944. So this was back like 100 years earlier in the 1840s. But I remember visiting, actually, this community called Fruitlands, where there were people that were living where they wouldn't eat any meat or no dairy products, no eggs, wouldn't wear wool, wouldn't wear silk or leather. They didn't want to cause any abuse to animals, and even they wouldn't even wear cotton. Anyone know why they wouldn't wear cotton in 1840? Because cotton in 1840, if you were in Massachusetts, that came from the South, from where there was slavery, right? Remember the slave plantations? So they didn't want to, take out their wallets and pay to support slavery, right? This is the whole idea of veganism, is we don't want to take out our wallets and pay and cause the suffering and abuse of other living beings. This is where we really vote. These are the votes that actually get counted. I don't know about the other votes, but these our dollars and our rupees get counted and create the system. So back then they didn't they didn't buy any cotton. So they were walking around through the snowdrifts of Concord in shoes made out of linen, which is a fiber that is, they were very hardcore vegans anyways, I guess the point. So I was raised in this area, but I didn't have any concept of this. I was raised in a family eating the usual meals of lots of meat, dairy products, and eggs. And I remember when I was about 7 years old, I asked my mother, I said, Mom, the kind of foods we're eating, is this what everybody eats? And she said, yes, everybody eats the kind of foods we're eating, pretty much everybody in the whole world. This is typical human food. And I said, okay, thanks. I was just wondering. And then she came back a few minutes later and she said, well, actually, I made a mistake. That's not completely true. There are vegetarians. And I had never heard that word in my life at that point. So I said, what is a vegetarian? And she said, I wouldn't really worry about it. You'll probably never meet one. And so and then she said, I don't know where they get their protein. I've never met one. I'm a lot older than you are. So I had this image of people that I would probably never meet that were always begging for spare protein from somewhere, that they were kind of dragging themselves around and had no protein, not enough protein. I was always taught that protein is like great, great thing. So this was the situation. So I think one of the points I want to emphasize this evening, essentially, is the power of community. All of us, I think, are products of our society, of our communities, and food is really the key of everything. Anthropologists understand that if you want to understand a society, look at their food. If you want to understand the primary way any society transmits its norms and values from generation to generation, look at their rituals, the rituals in any society. And the main rituals in any society are when people get together and eat food. So when we look at the meals that we're eating in our society, it's really a wonderful adventure, actually, of self-discovery, because we can understand why we have the attitudes we have at a very deep level, unconsciously, really, about our animals and about our relationships between men and women and between people and between humans and the environment and nature and God, the cosmos, all these things. It's really contained very, very deeply and very present right there in food. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. But to understand this, I think, is very important. So for me, growing up in this community of eating animal foods, that was it. I didn't have an option. I couldn't have begun to say, well, I don't want to eat what you're eating. I'd be like, then leave the family, or I couldn't, I couldn't even think of that. And I didn't have any example of anyone doing anything else. So I think it's important to realize when we leave here and we go out into the world, we see people taking out their wallets and voting and paying for animal-based foods, which are really causing a lot of suffering. It's because we're following orders, right? We're following the orders that were essentially injected into us by very well-meaning people, our parents, our teachers, doctors, government officials, all these various religious leaders and so forth. They're telling us we need to eat these foods. Animal-based foods are pretty much always included. If it's not meat, it's definitely dairy products. And so this underlying message comes through our community, and I think one of the greatest things we can do actually today in order to help heal our world is to do whatever we can to do two things. One is to question the official narratives, especially the official food narrative, and number two is to create alternative communities. So what we have right now, from my point of view, is an alternative community. When we go out here and we see people eating animal foods outside, we know that it's because of the communities they're raised in, that we're all raised in. And now we have an alternative community where we're talking about eating in a plant-based way just for a couple of hours, but we can also leave here, and there's many other communities, I think, that are very healthy, communities of health, sustainability, of freedom and liberation, of awareness, of kindness, compassion, vegan restaurants, for example, vegan meetup groups, vegan coaching and healthcare facilities. There's more and more of these arising, and as Madeline and I have been able to travel, because the World Peace Diet has now been translated into 16 languages, and so we're going all over the world at this point, to Europe and Eastern Europe and Africa and North and South America and Asia and so forth. We're seeing that this is happening everywhere. It's really beautiful, and it's definitely happening here in India. We had lunch today at a beautiful restaurant, Granny's Kitchen, I think it was called, and it was just delicious, delicious food. Did I get the name right? Granny's Bowl. Sorry, yeah, Granny's Bowl. And this wonderful, organic, healthy, plant-based food. And for me, as a vegan for 37 years and married to a wonderful partner who prepares food and we eat together, I have to say it really gets better and better in terms of not just the feeling of being part of a movement that's actually getting to the roots of the problems we're having in our society, because food is really the roots of it, but also that we're part of this worldwide growing community of people who are questioning this. And we meet such wonderful people as we travel and as we share these ideas. So for me, growing up, I was raised in this community, so I could never question it. And I even remember going away to this, when I was a little older, like 13, 14 years old, for a few years, to a summer camp nestled in the Green Mountains of Vermont, where nothing bad could ever happen, this beautiful little farm with chickens and cows and things. And I remember I learned how to catch chickens and hold them down with one hand, and then with my axe to cut their heads off and put the bodies, after they had died, through a scalding tank, and we would eat the chickens. And at that point, I knew that I was doing the right thing. You know, what God wanted me to do. This is the way, this is the way it's set up, that certain animals are designed for us to eat. They're sort of created to be food for humans. And that these animals do not have a soul like we do, and they're just very inferior to us, and if you don't eat them, you'll definitely die within 24 hours of a protein deficiency. Now, this is the way it's set up. This is the way God wanted it to be. And even a little later, we gathered around a dairy cow who was not very old. She was probably only about 4 or 5 years old, but already she was worn out. And this is something that happens on dairies, organic or not. The cows are impregnated against their will on what is referred to very often as a rape rack. So they don't have a choice about it. And then their baby, after 9 months, they give birth to the baby. The baby is stolen, and then the milk is stolen, basically. And then they're impregnated again. So they're pregnant and lactating simultaneously. You can imagine, for a woman, this is not a very good thing. To be pregnant while you're lactating with just the birth you just had. So it really destroys their health very quickly. And so she was only about 4 or 5 years old, but she was already worn out. So we actually, right on the floor of the barn, we just put a gun to her head and killed her. And the dairy operator, he said, this is what you do. If you can't use them for milk, then you use them for meat. This is the way God set it up, and this is the way it has to be. And there are so many babies born on dairy operation because you have to keep impregnating the cows that you're basically pretty much always killing most of the calves as well, except maybe one who will be a slave on the dairy to replace her mother. But the other males and females are usually killed because you don't want to just feed them unless you're going to eat them maybe for veal or something. So I saw all that. I participated in this, in killing them and eating them. But I didn't like it, but I could never question it. So I feel so fortunate because after I left college and I was finished with my education, I decided that with my brother that we would leave home, and instead of just going into the business world, I keep getting too far forward here. Okay, I'll stay back. That's better. Okay, sorry. That we would go on this spiritual pilgrimage. It was, I had read about the sadhus in India. I thought, man, that's great. They don't have to work. They just walk around. They just meditate all the time. I thought, that's the kind of life I want. I don't want to go and punch a time card and all this baloney. So so we left home and we thought we would walk all the way to California. That was like all the way across. We didn't get that far. But anyway, we walked as far as Buffalo, New York. We got there, it was freezing, it was October. So we headed south, and we walked for many months down through upstate New York, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Kentucky, into Tennessee. And at that point, we discovered this community called The Farm. And The Farm at that point was the largest hippie commune in the world. There was almost 1,000 people, and they were all, they said, vegetarians. And they were actually vegans because they didn't eat meat or dairy or eggs. No one heard of that word back in 1975, vegan, so all they could say was we're vegetarian. But it was really an example of a vegan community where people were thriving. So that was it. I was exposed to this other community. And there was about 200 children that were mainly vegan from birth. They were all doing great also. So I could see that this was something that was really viable. They were enthusiastic, energetic, very creative people. And no one was begging me for excess protein or anything. They're all doing fine. And I, up until that point, I thought, well, I should eat a little fish. I should, need to get my protein. I should eat a little cheese. I need to get my calcium. I was still programmed by these lies, basically. This is completely untrue, but I still believed some of that. So I talked to these people, and they told me a little bit about how healthy it is to eat a plant-based diet, how inefficient it is to feed most of the grain that we're growing, actually, most of the food that we actually grow as human beings, we don't feed to people. 70 to 80% of the food we grow, we feed to cows and pigs and chickens while people starve to death. This is such a disaster because these hungry people, not only are they suffering terribly, but when you have hunger, you have food shortages, you're going to have conflict. This is well understood to be the driving force behind conflict is food shortages and war. And so they told me about this and explained that they wanted to create a world of peace. So they were eating lower on the food chain so there would be enough for everyone. And they quoted Gandhi, how Gandhi said that there is enough for everyone's need, but there's never going to be enough for everyone's greed. Right? This earth is enormously abundant, and it's important to understand that. How many of you have noticed how beautiful the earth is? Yay! Let's all wave to the earth. Thank you, earth. This earth is so beautiful, and Madeline and I think, feel so fortunate, and I'm sure Philip and Shankar and all of you, as we travel to different places and see mountains and rivers and coral reefs and fishes, oceans and forests and birds flying, and just this incredible celebration of life here. I think it's so important for us to somehow a little bit take time to appreciate the natural world and know that we human beings today do have the power to destroy everything here. We have enough population, we have enough technology. We're cutting down right now the rainforests at a rate of a hectare every second. I mean, this is the lungs of the earth that we're destroying in order to grow soybeans to feed to cows, and then we don't feed the soybeans to hungry people, we feed them to cows and then eat the dairy products and the meat. So this is an example of using our technology to destroy the world, because the climate destabilization, the overfishing of the oceans, we're according to oceanographers, we're on the way to basically have dead oceans in another 15 or 20 years. So this is something that's very serious. So, and it's very important, I think, for us to understand the consequences of our actions. And so I didn't really learn about the environmental aspect as much, but the hunger aspect. And they also, when I was on the farm, told me a little bit just about the abuse of the animals, how they're mutilated. This whole idea of branding them, of chopping off their tails, and all these other things, castrating them and so forth. So these animals suffer both chronic and acute pain and fear. And for me, it was just such a beautiful thing because it was like somebody pulled the curtain back, and it was suddenly revealed to me what I think we all know in our bones, but we kind of pretend that we don't know about, just the massive ocean of suffering that we inflict on animals. But at the same time, I was eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner together with these people, and they were always meals of rice and tofu. We had the very first tofu making place. We made the first vegan ice cream. There had never been vegan ice cream in North America, and we invented the very first vegan ice cream. We'd make this soy milk. We'd boil the soybeans, make the soy milk, then we'd thicken it up and add some sugar and freeze it, and it was like terrible. But we say, well, it's the first vegan ice cream, pretty good, you know. So it's great to see. We had some the other day, and here in India, there is some great vegan ice cream. But anyway, it was just wonderful for me to be able to be living with these people and seeing how to actually eat plant-based meals. And so from that day, back in 1975, when I was at the farm in Tennessee and learned about the consequences of animal agriculture, I have never eaten meat in my life since that day. Back 42 years ago, everybody clapped. That's a really great thing, right? I feel so fortunate. And, and I found out many years later when I met Madeline in Switzerland, and I found out that this young Swiss woman, a painter, at the same month and year in Switzerland, just for some reason decided to never eat meat again in her life too. So we, even though we were far apart. And then about 5 years later, I learned more about dairy products and the cruelty to cows. I became a vegan in 1980, and a few years later, I decided to become a monk. I was actually living in meditation centers in the United States, primarily Buddhist meditation centers. And so I was in this monastery in Korea where I'd shave my head, and we were meditating a lot, like from 3 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night every day in silence for about, for quite a few months. And I realized I was in this community that had been practicing what we would call veganism for about 800 years, since the 1200s, since the monastery opened. And that this tradition was based on ahimsa, this teaching of nonviolence. So there was no meat, no dairy, no eggs, no wool, no silk, no leather, no killing mosquitoes. It was just trying to minimize our violence and abuse of animals. And so I realized that for thousands of years, actually, at least for hundreds, probably for several thousand years at least, maybe longer, people have understood that if we're really serious about evolving and awakening spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, and culturally, that it's important to develop and to practice and to cultivate a sense of respect and kindness for others, because we're all manifestations of the same life. There's one life living through all of us. We can see that when we see these beautiful trees and we water them, and we know that they'll grow mango tree and jackfruit tree, and that one tree, those trees, as they get bigger, they'll start giving off their fruits, and they don't say, okay, that's 2 rupees per fruit. They just give their fruits, and you can take seeds from the fruits and plant those and get much more. So this wonderful abundance. So that's a very important point, I think, to remember, is that we live on an earth that's not only beautiful, but that is enormously abundant, that we can feed everyone on this earth. There's no problem doing that. There is a problem if we're going to eat animal foods, because they are ridiculously inefficient to feed all this grain and corn and soy and wheat and oats and so forth to animals. We're even feeding fish. Now, a lot of the fish that we're growing, the reason the oceans are being so decimated is because we eat fish directly, but we also feed a lot of the fish to the animals, to the cows and pigs and chickens, because scientists now know that if you it's called enriching the feed, if you enrich the feed with fish meal, that the cows will fatten up more quickly and they'll give more milk, and the chickens will fatten up, and the pigs. And so we're destroying ecosystems because of this animal agriculture. So the underlying idea, I think, is when we see these beautiful plants, we can see that we can do agriculture in a way that's abundant, that there's harmony, that we can feed everyone actually on this earth on much less land than we're using for agriculture right now, if we and as we move toward a plant-based way of eating. And I think for a country like India, this is really important to understand, because India, the population is growing so quickly, and the stress of the population on the water supply, the water depletion, the lowering of the water tables, the water pollution, air pollution, and petroleum. It takes so much petroleum. It's about 15 to 20 times as much petroleum to feed someone eating meat and dairy products as someone eating a plant-based diet. Same thing with water and land. It takes about 15 times as much land to feed people eating a typical Western meat-based diet than someone eating a totally plant-based diet. So this is great news that we can really shrink our environmental footprint. We can feed so many more people on a given amount of land. And yet we have to remember, I think, and this is what I could see when I was doing the research into the World Peace Diet, and also saw, I think, when I was in Korea, that even though there's this ancient wisdom tradition of living lightly on the earth, of respecting water, respecting land, respecting animals, eating a healthy diet that's based on plant-based foods, which is really the ancient cuisine of India was basically plant-based. It was basically vegetables and grains and pulses and so forth and fruits. But as the herding of animals grew and we started eating more and more meat and dairy products, that's very much connected to the spread of war and conflict and the domination, not just of animals, but the domination and exploitation of other human beings. And so we find ourselves being born into a society where the community that we're raised in is eating animal foods, the animals are being exploited, and the people are also being exploited. So we do have these ancient wisdom traditions, like the ancient wisdom traditions of India, the Buddhist traditions and Hindu traditions and Jain traditions that are emphasizing ahimsa. So what we're talking about with veganism is living that and taking it to its full expression. No meat, no dairy, no eggs, no honey, gelatin, wool, silk, leather, to really try to live a life where we're not taking out our wallets and paying for suffering and misery. And that not only liberates animals, but it actually liberates us on many levels. So I think what I'll do is stop it right here and pick up afterwards with talking a little bit about the 5 levels of health and play. Maybe I'll play 2 short pieces of music and then talk a little bit more, and then I'll invite Madeline up for some piano and flute. So this is a piece of music. The first one I'd like to play is a piece called Alive. And Alive is a piece that's on our album called Animal Songs, which is an album of music that has the voices of animals blended in with the music, and to help people who are listening to the music realize that the animals, like cows and pigs and chickens and turkeys and ducks and geese and lambs and goats and so forth, they really have beautiful voices if we listen to them, and those voices are voices of beings. And if we look into the eyes of any of these animals, we'll see that there's someone in there, and that they have interests, and that their interests are important to them. In fact, their interests are as important to them as my interests are to me, actually. So if I harm them because I want to eat them or use them, exploit them, then I have to harden my heart to do so. And so what this whole movement is about, I think, essentially, is softening our hearts, coming home to the love in our hearts. So I'd like to dedicate this piece of music to connecting with the beauty of animals. Here's a buffalo. I know this is a little kind of an American buffalo, but I know buffalo are both in Asia and as well as in the United States are under a big attack, a lot of violence towards them. So to hold our hearts open for the beauty of the animals, and also that human beings, that we may awaken and live in a more kind and loving way. This is a piece called Alive. Enjoy. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'll play, let's see. I wonder if I have time. I think I'll play one more P. It's, oh goodness, 7:30. Yeah, I'll play one more piece. This is called Redwood Light, and the melody came to me when Madeline and I were living in a house overlooking a valley of an uninhabited valley of redwood trees, these ancient, very tall trees. And one evening I was taking a walk among these trees and I heard a melody. It was very quiet, it was rainy, and I was so glad when I heard this melody that I still remembered it when I got back up to the house and I wrote it down. I'd like to share this melody with you now, and it seemed like it was inspired by these ancient trees. Perhaps they are aware of what's happening in the world and in our human actions and thoughts, and come to us perhaps to help remind us of an ancient song of wisdom, of freedom, of understanding that still sings and still reverberates in the marrow of our bones and in our hearts. This is Redwood Light. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, so a few other points I want to emphasize here is just to remind all of us something that I think we all know in our bones, but it's not very often not spoken about, which is to broaden the understanding that we have about our own health, that our physical health is important, but besides our physical health, our environmental health is important. And besides our environmental health, we have our cultural health. We live in a healthy society. This is the outer dimension in many ways of health. To have a healthy physical body with plenty of energy, that's a foundation really important for happiness and creativity and really to live our lives on this earth. But we need to have a healthy ecosystems and a healthy society. Besides those outer dimensions, there's also the inner dimensions of health, our psychological health and emotional health, as well as our spiritual health, which may be the most important of all because our spiritual health connects us with our inner purpose, connects us with the dimension that transcends the material level, where we're just a material thing, an object, a machine that was born and will die. But it's our spiritual health that connects us with what I think in India has been emphasized so importantly, and I think in many ways India has been trying really for thousands of years to remind the rest of the world about the importance of the spiritual dimension. So what I've discovered in looking at this, and I think we can all see this very clearly, is that animal agriculture destroys and erodes all 5 dimensions of health. It really works against, in a very aggressive manner, against our ecosystems. I've already talked a little bit about it. I won't go more. There's a huge amount of information. But the basic understanding is that animal agriculture is so wasteful that it's destroying our any possibility we have of having a healthy ecosystems like water, oceans, climate, air, soil. All of these things are very being brutally exploited because animal agriculture requires so much water, land, and other resources, and it invites the use of chemical pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides, as well as hormones, antibiotics. All of this stuff ends up in the environment. There's over 10,000 different hormones and drugs that are used on animals in agriculture. And not only do those pollute our own physical body, they pollute the environment. So it's really important to understand that if we want to do one thing to just care for our earth, to have an earth for our future generations, that would be to move to a plant-based way of eating and living. Organic if possible, and I see that's growing in India, and also as much as possible a whole foods, organic plant-based diet. This is a wonderful foundation for health for our ecosystems as well as for ourselves. Also to live in a healthy society because as I already talked about, since animal agriculture is so wasteful, it leads to war and food shortages. And also the fact that we have workers who have to stab animals and abuse them, mutilate them and so forth, who have very high rates of suicide and drug addiction, of injuries, of spousal abuse. You know, these workers that are doing the work that we would not want to do all day, just stabbing animals or beating them or kicking them, otherwise harming them, very often are so abused themselves by this work that they harm many other people, themselves or other people. So our physical health is the third dimension, and this is, again, a whole chapter in the World Peace Diet, and as Phil has studied this a lot as well, living at Hippocrates, which is a healing center, and the main method of healing people is by feeding them or allowing them to eat a totally plant-based diet. And so this is well understood, I think, that as we move to a more plant-based way of eating, that our organs, our cells, our whole physical body is just relieved of all of the stress and toxins that come from eating animal-based foods. Not only, as I mentioned in the World Peace Diet, we're not just eating the physical toxins that concentrate in animal foods, like the heavy metals and PCBs and dioxins and so forth that concentrate in animal flesh, but also the naturally occurring toxins such as casein, for example, in dairy products that we cannot digest very well because we don't have the hormone that little calves have, which is renin. So it causes many problems for us, appendicitis and tonsillitis and all kinds of problems for children, as well as adults, diabetes and many other things, as well as the growth hormones that are carcinogenic in dairy products. Also the acidifying and inflammatory animal protein saturated fat, cholesterol, as well. And not only all that, but also we're eating fear and terror and pain and despair and sadness and grief. Do we really want to eat those very real energies and feed them to our children? And so we have to realize that essentially this wonderful good news is, and the main message here tonight from my point of view is good news, that all of us have been given this wonderful gift of a physical body that does not require any animal to suffer to get all the nutrients that we need to thrive and be healthy on this beautiful earth. However, just to remember and understand that we've all been wounded because we've been born into a society where we've been compelled to participate in these mealtime rituals from the time we're little infants, where we have to not just watch the adults eating meat and dairy products, but we have to do it too. We have to eat that stuff. I remember I was the older brother, and my mother said when I was maybe 7 years old, she said, "You can feed your little sister now." And she was sitting in the high chair, and she, just a little tiny thing. And so I was feeding her, but she kept, and my mother said, "Make sure she eats her protein." That meant the meat. And of course, when I fed her the protein, she kept spitting it out. She didn't want to eat it. I said, "You got to eat your protein. Come on. I don't want you to die." My mother will blame me because my sister died because I didn't give her the protein. So I was making it like an airplane. Here comes the protein. And she kept spitting it out. So anyway, I was forcing it down her throat, and finally, because I didn't want her to die from a protein deficiency, now I know that was ridiculous, but at that time, that's what I thought. And I'm so happy I can say that my little sister eventually became a vegan after she read the World Peace Diet. and she has a daughter, and her daughter is also a vegan. And her daughter has 3 little boys, and they're all vegan from birth and unvaccinated and really healthy as can be. So I think it's wonderful to realize, give them a hand, that's great. Oh, and actually, and even my dear mother, who's 89 years old now, is also a vegan. Yay. And Madeline's mother, for all the way up until just last year, she passed away finally at the age of 97, but was a healthy vegan. And it's so great to see. My mother's probably the only one in her retirement community that's not taking some kind of pharmaceutical medication. She's the only vegan and the only one not on drugs of some kind. So it's so wonderful to see that we can be so much healthier. I've been so fortunate. I haven't been to a doctor now in 40 years. And just eating a plant-based diet is a wonderful foundation for health for ourselves. And this is something I think is very important to understand. But the final point I want to emphasize is just how it's healthy for our psychology, for our spirituality. Because eating animal foods, we're not just eating these toxic foods, we also have to eat toxic attitudes. We have to eat this attitude of might makes right, that since I'm stronger than you, I can dominate you, I can exploit you, I can use you. And we even have these ideas like we're inherently superior and the animals are inherently inferior. I mean, this speciesism, and it's the foundation of racism and sexism and heterosexism and ableism, this idea that some beings are just inferior, and since they're inferior, well, too bad for them. We'll use them and abuse them. And so what the whole idea of ahimsa and veganism is that those who are stronger, instead of dominating and exploiting and abusing those who are weaker, we're called to love them and protect them and let them live their lives, not harm them. And I think this is the great moral test for us as human beings. We have these beings in our hands. They're not as powerful as we. We can dominate them with our technology and so forth. And we have them. So what do we do? What do we choose to do? Do we choose to just crush them and torture and abuse them? Or do we let them live their lives? And when we grow to the point where we are mature enough, ethically, intellectually, emotionally, and culturally, that we allow the animals of the earth to celebrate their lives, we do not need to eat them, imprison them, rape them, steal their babies, kill them, and abuse them. There's no need to do that. None. Zero. In fact, it's destroying everything. When we understand that and we mature to the level where we let them live their lives, only then will we be worthy to live on this planet in harmony and abundance together. There's nothing stopping us. The door is open. It's beckoning. We can walk through the door to a beautiful world of peace and harmony. The price we have to pay to go through that door is not a price at all, actually. I mean, I would not want to eat meat or dairy at all, but the whole idea is that the price we have to pay is that we don't abuse others. As the great Indian sages have said for thousands of years, Whatever we sow, we will reap. If we reap seeds of abuse and harm and misery, we get that in our body, in our relationships, in our society. We see the suffering around us. We see the injustice. We see the inequality. We see the unsustainability. We see we're causing this, and it's not necessary. It's because of the action of animal agriculture. Animal agriculture actually causes these problems by creating food shortages, by creating disease, by creating misery, by all those things in the outer world. But then it goes even farther than that, and it wounds us in the inner landscape of our consciousness. It shrinks our intelligence. It makes us look with eyes that say it's okay to dominate others. It makes us disconnect, because to eat animal foods, we have to disconnect from what we're doing. We have to stay shallow and just not look deeply, not care deeply, just pretend that we don't know what's happening, to pretend that the cows are fine, the pigs and chickens, everything's okay, when we know that we're eating misery, we're causing misery, we're feeding misery and violence and toxicity to our children. So we have to actually understand this and make the connections. And making the connections is intelligence. That is what intelligence is. For a human being, for an animal, for a society, there's intelligence for all of these different systems. And we live in a system, a social system, that basically shuts down our intelligence and shuts down the intelligence of the whole system, so that we use our resources and our money to do what? To build weapons, to cut down forests, to destroy oceans, when we could use this to reforest the world, to create beautiful, harmonious gardens and fields and habitats. We could do that. There's nothing stopping us, except that we live in a system where people are eating animal foods, their intelligence is reduced, there's a wealthy elite that gets wealthy on this violence, and the media enforces it. And I understand this. I was raised in a whole family, my family owned a chain of newspapers. And I learned early on that when you're writing in the news and you're telling people what's going on, you do not tell them any news that the advertisers don't like, right? The advertisers are paying for the news. When they advertise, that's where the radio and television and everything, they get their money from the advertisers. So we don't hear about what we're talking about here. We really don't hear about that very much in the mass media. We don't hear about how wasteful animal agriculture is, how violent it is, how terrible it is for our health. Because we have large corporations, chemical corporations, food corporations, pharmaceutical and medical corporations, defense weapons corporations that make money off war and disease and poverty. So the whole idea is to realize that this is a grassroots movement where we ourselves, the people, educate each other. We get together like this, and we talk about these ideas, and we create communities of sustainability and freedom and liberation and health. And that's the greatest gift we can give to the world, is to do what we can to help spread this message, that each one of us has a piece of the puzzle. Each one of us has a unique gift that we can give. So I'd like to invite my wonderful wife, Madeline, to join me up here to contribute her piece of the puzzle. This is another one, the paintings. And so we'll be playing a few pieces of music together. And thank you all so much for all of the efforts that you're making to help raise awareness in India and in our world. And we'll go ahead and play this piece, which we call the Pune Blessing piece. This is a piece that we especially dedicate to blessing this beautiful city of Pune and especially the vegan movement here, and the people who are now and in the future and in the past have worked to help liberate animals and people from this story that we need to dominate and abuse animals to be healthy, which is completely not true. So, Madeline, do you want to say anything about this piece? Or start?
It's
start?
The
Pune Blessing piece.
The
Okay.
Pune Blessing. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, thank you. Next piece is a flock of white pelicans circling over the ocean or a lake, some kind of water, and just enjoy. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Will.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Let's have another hand for Madeline on the flute. Thank you, sweetheart. Hey. All right, so I'd like to just kind of wrap it up here. There's so much more I would love to share with you. The World Peace Diet is available as an audio book. It's 13 and a half hours long, and I don't repeat anything. So there's really a lot I'd love to share, and I realize I just have a few minutes. So it's kind of like this vast mandala of interconnectedness that helps us to see these interconnections. There's chapters that go into the metaphysical dimension of this, the historical dimension, and just to see that essentially we've been born into a society that for 10,000 years has been dominating and exploiting animals. It's called herding. You know, it started about 10,000 years ago in what is today northeastern Iraq, as far as we can tell from anthropologists. And it was wild sheep, and then wild goats, and about 2,000 years later, wild cows. And that just led essentially to about 5 major changes in the society as it developed and as this continued, all of which really have been very damaging to all of us. One of the things that happened was that animals were reduced. Instead of being respected as mysterious and powerful cohabitants of the earth with us, they became mere property. Secondly, there was an arising of a wealthy elite class. By the time the historic period emerged, we have the first writings, we can read about the kings and so forth that lived, and they were wealthy and powerful because they owned capital. The ancient Latin word for capita means head, as in head of sheep and goats and cows. This was wealth. And so they invented 2 more institutions that we still have with us. One is war. The very first word for war that we know of on planet Earth, the oldest word for war is gavya, which comes from the root word go, which means cow, and gavya means the desire for more cows. That's war. So we had this arising for the first time on planet Earth of war, and whoever lost the war, unfortunately, not only did the animals become the property of the victors, but the people became the property of the victors. So we had, for the very first time on Earth, slavery. So the slavery of animals has led to this arising of a wealthy elite class that dominates and exploits the rest of the society, politically, militarily, and economically, to war, which is used as a way of making more money by the wealthy elite class, to slavery, which is still rampant in the world today, ownership of human beings, and the economic and actual slavery. Then also the domination of women, because animal agriculture is not just human beings dominating animals. More accurately, in many ways, it's men dominating female animals, because you cannot have animal agriculture without the sexual abuse of female animals, impregnating them against their will, then when they give birth, stealing their babies and impregnating them again and stealing their milk. And so there's this ongoing sexual abuse of animals by the millions every day. And this is really, I think, very harmful, not only to the animals, really, but to us as well. So this whole mentality and practice of seeing females as mere breeders to give me what I want, to give me sons, or give me cows, or to give me pleasure and so forth, that this kind of mentality has been very harmful to our relationships as human beings. And also the role model of the boys more and more began to be the role model of a hard, tough, disconnected male capable of violence against animals, against rival herders, against rival people, and against women. So this whole system spread in many ways, unfortunately, it seems, but this is what had to happen, I guess, throughout the world, gradually spreading through the Eastern Mediterranean into the Northern Mediterranean, to Central Asia, into Europe, and spreading really through the conquest of the empires that were basically meat eaters, who had a lot of meat and dairy and a lot of military and so forth. And it's still spreading today in many ways through the large corporations like ConAgra, Cargill, Monsanto, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Burger King, McDonald's, through the IMF and the World Bank and the large institutions, financial institutions, large banks, and so forth. It's a system that I call that whole thing the military, industrial, meat, medical, pharmaceutical, media, banking complex. Right? this big complex. And essentially, it works very well to take most of the wealth and put it in the hands of a few people, and animal agriculture is a big part of that, actually. So when we are eating animal foods, if I'm a person taking out my wallet and paying for dairy products or meat, I'm not only exploiting these animals, I'm also being exploited, because I will be more sick, I will be sure to be giving more money to the wealthy elite. So the whole idea is that for us to be liberated, we need to liberate these animals, and it's a beautiful thing to do. It creates more love in our lives, more joy, more freedom, more health, more sustainability, a purpose for living. I can't think of any greater purpose, actually, for a human lifetime than the purpose of living to grow and understand and spread the message of compassion and wisdom and health. And finally, to just remember that there's something I refer to in the World Peace Diet as Sophia, which is the sacred feminine dimension of life, and that this is suppressed in all of us. Sophia, I think in the Buddhist tradition, it's the Sanskrit word prajna means wisdom. And so it's the inner wisdom within all of us, especially I think in women, in the sense that there's this wisdom of love a mother feels when she gives birth to a little baby and wants to protect the little baby, even though the baby is a lot of trouble. The mother just loves and nurses and protects the baby. This is the foundation of health, not only for the baby, but for us, because we were all babies once, right? So this loving, motherly, caring, protecting wisdom within both women and men. Men have this capacity too to love and nurture and protect life, that this is suppressed by being raised in an animal agriculture society of eating dairy products and eating meat. We have to learn to suppress Sophia, to suppress the inner feminine wisdom, to just be hard and tough, just eat the meat, eat the cheese, eat the milk, eat the eggs, and don't care about these animals. And so Sophia is the energy of caring. That's why I think what veganism is, essentially, it's ahimsa. It's also this resurrection of the sacred feminine dimension of life, in our consciousness, rising up to love and nurture and protect life and say no to animal abuse, but that's also saying yes to harmony and to organic and plant-based living, and so we can create another way of living. So this whole idea is that we're not just criticizing an obsolete and destructive way of living, we also have this wonderful alternative, and we've been enjoying eating this way for, for decades, for 37 years, and wearing shoes and everything without any leather, and it's just, it's the most fantastic thing. That's all I can say. I always say the best thing I ever did was going vegan. Well, the best thing I ever did was marrying Madeline, but the second best thing I ever did was going vegan. It's my smartest move because it really creates a foundation where I can wake up in the morning, and I encourage everyone to do this, to wake up in the morning and just give thanks for another day of growing and learning and somehow contributing the best we have to give to creating a positive future for ourselves and for our children. I think there's no greater gift we can give to ourselves and to others than to make an effort to do this, because we're all only here for a few years. We don't know how many. It's not that many. Maybe if we eat really healthy, we get maybe 100 or something years, but still it goes by very quickly. So to remember that and to spend the time that we have working together. As we've seen in India, since we've been here, we've seen this wonderful cooperation among so many different groups to share the vegan message, to help us in our journeying with so much love and generosity and kindness and caring, and to share this message with the media, to share it with each other, to create businesses, maybe like vegan ice cream business or vegan shoes or vegan events or something that helps bring this message in a way that is kind and loving. The whole idea really, I think, is to cultivate our inner kindness and caring, not just for the non-human animals, but also for the human animals, because we're all wounded by being raised in a society of violence, and we have to heal people. It's really a movement of healing and kindness and caring and of joy and celebration. So I want to thank all of you for being here this evening, for finding your way somehow here, and for helping to share the energy of a movement that is just, it's an ancient movement, but in many ways it's just beginning. But it was great. I heard someone today tell us who's from India, and a native, saying that he felt that in India the vegan movement will grow faster than it has ever grown in any country in the world, because it has such a deep root of ahimsa that the vegan movement is ready to just explode and grow very quickly. So I think, again, there's no greater gift we can give than to work to help make this happen. So much love to all of you. Thank you so much for the efforts you're making. It's really important. So important. Thank you. Thanks so much. So I'd like to invite our dear friend Philip Nicozisis to join us up here on the stage and say a few words about the health benefits of moving to a plant-based way of living, and then we'll be hearing a little bit from our dear friend Shankar as well. Let's give a hand to Philip.
No, the hand goes to Dr. Will Tuttle. Isn't he amazing? Thank you so much. I won't say, I know everybody came to hear and listen to the Tuttles. Oh, and I need to stand back here too. I'm not good at following orders, that's why I'm vegan. So, okay, you have been sitting patiently. We're gonna do something right now. Let's stand up and stretch. Everybody stand up, stretch, and say, yoga. Go this way, go that way. Say hello to your neighbor. Maybe give him a high five or her a high five. Right here, right? Great. So I'm Phil Nicozisis. I'm from the United States, West Palm Beach. And I'm a health educator at Hippocrates Health Institute. And it's a beautiful retreat center. They have a 3-week program that you can all go to. And basically, it's the core of the program is whole food veganism, which we see all the time. In 3 weeks' time, these people come from all over the world, and very often they halt, reverse, and resolve chronic and catastrophic diseases. After, by the way, they're up against the wall. They've tried everything. They've been manipulated. They've been essentially tortured. They've had their organs cut up and sometimes removed by the medical industrial complex, which we can't say it's all bad. I mean, I think the technology of modern medicine is great for what? For episodes and things like trauma, right? So I love being in India. I love that Dr. Will has talked about the essence of ahimsa. And the vegetarian, and so in the Indian heritage, vegetarianism is understood. How many vegetarians are here? Great. So we're literally speaking to the choir tonight, right? So we understand not to eat the flesh of the animal. We understand not to eat the flesh of the cow. This is what I would call big meat. Many of us understand we don't want to eat little meat, the birds and the chickens. We also understand we don't want to eat swimming meat, right? We also understand we don't want to eat pre-meat, known as eggs. So then why are we eating liquid meat? Liquid meat known as dairy products and milk. Why are we eating congealed milk meant for someone else's baby, known as cheese? And in the World Peace Diet, Dr. Will points out, we have all these fancy names for these products. We have filet mignon. We have steak. This is part of the cover-up. We have cheese because congealed milk meant for someone else's baby before the baby was stolen and then executed. Doesn't quite have the same ring to it, does it? So in closing, thank you so much. Pune has been so special to us. India has been so special to us. And lastly, all I can say, to sum it all up, nothing tastes as good as vegan feels. Thank you so much. God bless all of you.
Awesome. Thank you. That's something. Let's all say that together. Nothing tastes as good as vegan feels. I mean, I can say that that is so incredibly true. I have a friend who said to me a while back, his name is Russ, he said, but Will, come on, be honest with me. Don't you sometimes just yearn to eat a burger? Wouldn't that be great, just to have a burger now and then? And I said to him, Russ, I yearn to eat a burger about as much as I yearn to take a bite out of your arm right now. Which is like, not at all. And I can see these animals are not food. I'm not going to go like, don't worry, I'm not going to take a bite out of your arm. You know? So it's so liberating to realize what our true food is, and understanding, like Phil was talking about, how moving to a plant-based diet does not only allow us to be healthy, but even really in many ways much healthier than by eating the other foods that we're told we should be eating. So it's liberating us from so much suffering, as well as we liberating animals from suffering also. So finally, I'd like to invite Shankar Narayan to join us on the stage to talk a little bit about the tour and his work with the Sattvic Vegan Society of India, which he has founded. So let's give a big hand to Shankar Narayan, who's been a wonderful tour guide all over India. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Will, for giving me the opportunity to speak here. You just played a music called Pune Blessing. This is very important. It is very important to bless someone and get the blessings from someone. So Pune is already blessed by the God, I feel, because it is blessed with such wonderful vegan activists like Darshana Mazumdar, Manoj Oswal, Aniket Barhade, and Shweta Bargaonkar, then Shashwati Ganguly. Some of the names I know. So all these are very blessings of people like you and the God's blessings. So Pune is very blessed, and Pune has a very vibrant vegan movement. Thank you for all for making this event a success, event possible. And I also thank Dr. Will Tuttle and Madeline Tuttle and Philip Nicosis for having come all the way from the US and making this entire tour, including the Pune leg, a success, a possibility. So with all your support, with all your dream, this event has happened. So my role is very, very minimal. So let me explain how it all happened. In 1989, when I read Mahatma Gandhi's autobiography, My Experiments with Truth, I learned that drinking milk is not our right. I stopped consuming cows and buffalo milk in 1989. But still, at that time, I was not aware of anything about veganism. It went on, though I consumed milk products occasionally, I stopped consuming milk. But I didn't know the full purview of this milk's role in our life. Then when I got to know about this vegan word from internet in 1996, I opened up my views about this and studied a lot about this. There's a vegan society in the UK, vegan movement world over, vegan events happening everywhere. So all this came to my mind and I learned more about this. In 2001, I finally decided I consciously want to go vegan without any excuses, without any compromises further. So in 2001, I became vegan. And in 2004, after 3 years of contemplation, I started my vegan activism. So vegan activism led to start organizing vegan festivals. So this way, since 2004, I have been organizing vegan festivals. Somewhere when I organized one of the major festivals in 2007, first 11th International Vegan Festival, it started in Denmark and I brought it to India in 2007. In that, I came to know about Dr. Will Tuttle's World Peace Diet from a friend of mine who had participated in the vegan festival. So I read after some time that book, and the potential of that book, the importance, the message of that book immediately realized by me. The first point I realized from that book is, in my own words, what you have that you give. What you give that you get. This is interconnectedness of all our activities. If I smile with you, what you will do? You smile back. If I stare at you, you will do the same thing. If I am angry, you will also get angry. See the connection. The connection, this makes you feel you need to give good things to others. If you are happy, others will also be happy. If you are sad, others will also be happy. Others will also be sad. So like this connectedness between two beings and connectedness, interconnected with all the beings, whether it is human beings or animals or just objects. If the speaker performs well, I will become very happy. If it is not performing well, then I will be angry. See, connection is not just with living beings, it is with non-living beings also. This beauty I have realized from his book. And after that, in 2010, in my vegan festival, I had invited him. He was to come, but somehow he had to cancel that program. And today, after 7 years, like a money deposit in a bank growing several times, one event cancelled has happened, 10 events in 10 cities. So beauty it is. So Dr. Will Tuttle and his entire group, Madeline Tuttle, luckily we have Philip Nicosis also, all three of you have come and performed in all the venues. We started with Mumbai on October 26th. Sorry, I am not as strong as Dr. Tuttle. He is vegan for 35 years. In the entire tour, in spite of all the hardships, he is still smiling, he is still very healthy. But I am not so yet, because I am just crossed 16 years of veganism. I fell sick in Delhi 2 days ago. Still it is reverberating in me. And with the 2010 festival, now it is one event cancelled, it has multiplied into 10 times. So that is the beauty of this veganism. We have been having these events, and from 26th October, which we started in Mumbai, then we went to Mangalore, then went to Bangalore, Tiruvannamalai, Chennai 2 events, Hyderabad, Kolkata, Delhi, and we are in the semi-final today. This is a very good semi-final we had, though the stadium is very full, a very huge stadium. There are very important, very interesting players here. Very good to see all of you. And tomorrow we have last event in Surat, that is final. We expect a much, much larger event there with several film stars coming, several celebrities attending. It's a beautiful event, beautiful series of events. With the success of this, with the success of your presence, what reminds me is I have been conducting vegan festivals in villages because it is reconnecting with nature, not reconnecting with something man-made. Therefore, I have been conducting vegan festivals. People have been coming from various countries, various cities, from Pune people had come, from other cities, everywhere people had come. Now I have been thinking of taking this vegan festival to cities. At least many people can't come to the village, they have to be in cities, they can attend in these cities. The first thing comes to my mind is with these beautiful vegans around, so Pune can be the ideal host for this vegan festival in 2018. Are you ready for that? Yes, you are all ready for that. I am also ready for that. I think with the vegan activists like Darshana and Aniket, I think it's not impossible to host. This will be a residential event. People will come, stay there, celebrate together, have fun, learn and everything together. And with the open invitation for public also. This kind of format I have been having. One largest event was 7-day event, minimum 2 days events, at least 2 days event we can have in Pune. So that is I am looking forward to in 2018. So with these words, I would like to conclude. There is endless to talk because we have so much to share. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. At the end of the session, there are some music CDs of Dr. Will Tuttle available with me for you to buy. Sorry again. Thank you very much for giving the opportunity. Please continue the program. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Shankar. I think we're going to be moving to one other event. I think I'd like to, if it's all right to do just one other thing first, just very briefly, just have a closing meditation now before we go to the final event. So let's get comfortable in our seats if you can. Just, I know you're already comfortable, but even more comfortable maybe. And perhaps close our eyes, turn our attention within. And if you're comfortable, I think it'd be nice for this short meditation to just reach out your hand, right or left hand or both, and just take someone's hand in your hand who's nearby, next to you, and feeling that person's hand in your hand and feeling your connection with the earth, this beautiful planet, and all the power of the earth to bring forth life, and feeling also our connection with heaven and the infinite creative power of the universe. Feeling the hand of this person or these two people next to us and feeling our connection with them as a beautiful and unique being who has gifts and abilities and feelings. And then through them, feeling our connection with everyone in this whole hall, that we're all, in a sense, a circle that's connected. We're connected by our aspirations, our feelings, our yearnings, our caring and love, our yearning for freedom and compassion and respect. So we just honor this moment. We take a moment to just feel and savor the delicious beauty of this moment right now, that so many people are working to help relieve suffering of animals, and that we'll be going forth after tonight with more vigor and energy and inspiration and creativity and support to continue each day to be part of an awakening of human consciousness on this planet, that we may live our lives as we're intended to here with love and compassion and abundance and sustainability. We give thanks to all of our ancestors, everyone in the past who has helped plant the seeds of more wisdom and compassion. And we give thanks for all those who are coming, who will be the people we work together with, our friends and colleagues, and all the inspiring people in our movement that we're connected with right now all over the world, the movement for joy and health and liberation, and that this lives in our mind, in our thoughts, in our feelings, and that we're growing every day to understand more deeply the power of our food choices, the power of the wisdom of questioning violence and of replacing it with caring and kindness, and that together we are healing our world. So let's bring our hands together now and just take a moment and we give thanks, especially I think to the beautiful life of Mahatma Gandhi, who taught us about satyagraha, or truth force, the power of truth, of speaking our truth with love to others, the power of food. He said the most powerful weapon in mankind's arsenal is the fork, because through the fork we harm so many animals and ourselves. And he taught us to live a life of simplicity, of harmony and caring, and that each one of us can transform our planet. Each one of us is part of this movement. So I'd like to just close with a short piece of music called Benediction of Light and dedicate it to the fulfillment of this vision that we can send forth into the city of Pune and beyond to the entire world. Enjoy. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Welcome back to Darshana. Thank you.
So that was really wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing all this with us. I'm sure it has made us think about how we can really connect with nature, with other animals, even things like dairy, which we never think about as being cruel. Yes, I'm sure it has made you think now and will help you make this world a kinder place. I request Rashi to come on stage and, oh, sorry, before that, I'm so sorry. We have a prize giving away. Can the students of MSIHMCT please raise their hands? Okay, so 3 students have turned up. They have exams. So we'll just give these the gifts, their prizes. Can you all come up on stage, please? So the Vegan Master Chef Challenge is something that I organize in Pune first. I organized it 4 years ago in 2014. We started off with 2 colleges. I graduated from hotel management, and I thought, after I went vegan, I was like, please, why don't you take your seats here? Yeah, that's okay. Come on, you are heroes. So I thought, it's strange that I, coming from the hotel industry, did not know anything about nutrition and how I was brainwashed into believing that animal products really were the healthiest. And as I became vegan, I studied about whole food, plant-based nutrition and other stuff. I was like, oh, these people are feeding poison to the masses. How can that be? It's just not right. So I thought it's my responsibility to take this information to these colleges. And we now hold seminars in these colleges that teach students to cook. So we hold seminars on whole food nutrition so that they understand that there is a way out where they can make delicious food that is nurturing, that is caring, not just for animals, but for humans as well. And I hope that the seminar has helped you. It's opened your eyes, I hope. Yeah? And then we give them a challenge. So we hold the seminar a week before the challenge. They have a week to do their research because now they've suddenly opened up to a world where they've taught that animal products are killing you and you're killing your customers by feeding it to them, right? So suddenly they're like, okay, now what do I cook? Well, that happened with me because I used to have animal products every single day. And when I went vegan, I was like, now what do I eat? And I started eating unhealthy food. So we give them a week's time, unhealthy vegan foods, okay? So we give them a week's time to do their research, and then we give them a challenge of preparing 3 dishes, a starter, a main course, and a dessert. We usually give them guidelines for 2 dishes, and the third one is a technical challenge, which they have to prepare on the day of the challenge after we give them the recipe. So they have to follow the recipe that is given on the day of the challenge. We started off with 2 colleges the first year, then we went to 4 colleges, and one of the colleges, AISSMS, was so impressed, was so interested, they had this competition for their inter-college fest. They have their college fest, which invites colleges from all over India, and 23 colleges from India participated in that challenge. It was amazing. But sadly, we could not arrange for a seminar for that college for them to understand what it is all about. So today this year we've taken it to all over India. We're taking it to as many cities as possible. If you have friends or you have contacts in other cities who are connected with colleges or institutes of hotel management, please get in touch with me and we can take this challenge to them. I'm asking you as well. You probably have friends in other colleges in other cities or wherever. Let me know and we can connect with them and take this ahead. So I'd request Will to please give away the prizes to them. So are the winners here? Okay, so the two winners are there, and are you a runner-up? Who's the? You're a runner-up. Great. So let me get the. Let's get first prize. So Atharva Marathe. Yes. First prize. Ashish Bogam, first prize. And Abhishek Gund. The runner-up, Abhishek Gund. And I request you to take these certificates and this prize and give it to the others. Yes? Thank you. So thank you so much for coming, and I hope you're going to take this forward. Can I ask you if you've gone vegan yourselves? Not yet. Are you thinking about it? Oh, great. That's work in progress. I hope coming here has helped you connect with, yes, what we are actually choosing to do every single moment. Yeah? So thank you so much. A big round of applause for these three champions. Thank you. Thank you. Could we have a picture with you, please, together? Are we okay? Thank you. Can I ask Rashi now to come? She has a poem for us, which she's written especially for this day. And can I ask the guests also to please come on stage?
Thank you, ma'am. I've written a poem titled Esperance, which means hope. I am now the voice of animals. Look us in the eyes, see through them. It's a real story you have witnessed through your own eye. I sit, I wait in my cage, in my prison, for the moment to come when justice is given. Then I do not beg for food, I only beg for freedom. I know I can't speak. I cry and hurt. I play and love. I have feelings just like you. The broken wing has a voice to sing. The morning blesses everything. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for that beautiful poem. I
Thank
really
you, sir.
hope to see it published. Thank you.
Yes. This concludes this chapter in my life, and I now stand firmly to write my next chapter. I would like to thank the audience for being such a generous audience, and thanks to our chief guest and the inspirational music. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you, sir, for your influential message and for your words of wisdom. Thank you. May the transformation force be with you.
Thank you, everyone. Go forth and multiply the message. We're happy to answer questions and talk for a little while, and maybe we can have some pictures together also. That would be great. Thank you.
I'd just like to say, I think we have to give Aniket Borhade a huge round of applause because he's put in so much effort into making this a success. He's thought of each and everything, and he's led this to become a success. And I'm so happy to see all of you here. So we have 5 minutes if anybody has any questions to talk to. Just 5 minutes. Does anybody want to ask Dr. Will Tuttle any questions?
Okay, we have 5 minutes.
Yes.
My favorite part. Are there any questions, anybody? Here I am, 37-year vegan. You must have some question. Okay, yes, sir.
You've been traveling to so many countries.
Yes.
Many countries have cultures where meat and milk is so much a part of it. In fact, in Indian culture also, it's not so easy to find meat, but there are always options. But were there any places where you found it very difficult to find food which matches your philosophy?
Okay, so the question is that we've been to many, many cultures and many cultures around the world have meat and dairy, even more than India does, much worse. And is there any places that was really hard for us to find anything to eat? And actually, the good news is that everywhere we've gone in the world, we have been able to find healthy plant-based foods to eat. One of the reasons I think for that is that plant-based foods are what people eat a lot of anyway, right? I mean, people are eating grains and beans or pulses. They're eating fruits of various kinds and nuts and seeds and vegetables. So those are available in stores. And we've even found, really, that there's, even in places like Dubai and Cape Town, South Africa, many other places where you think it might be difficult, there are vegan restaurants and even vegan meetup groups. So the movement really is growing. And there's a few places in Texas that gets pretty slim pickings, but I think other than that, we're able to manage pretty well. I'm very fortunate to be married to Madeline, who's from Switzerland, and the Swiss are masters of planning for the future and consolidating their resources. So pretty much, even if she says we're all out of food, I know there's always a little bit of food somewhere that she has, so we don't we never completely run out. But yeah, the good news is there's really an increase, and we see it everywhere in the amount of vegetarian and vegan restaurants. We'll be going next, flying actually in a couple of days to Taiwan, which I think may be the most vegan-friendly country in the whole world. In that little island, there's over 1,000 vegan and vegetarian restaurants. It's really moving very well. The roots really come to India, I think. I mean, the Buddhist tradition is very strong in Taiwan, which originated in India. So there's a lot of places where it's growing very fast. Taiwan is also growing very quickly in organic. It's really neat how I'll just share this little story because I think it's so helpful. There was virtually no organic agriculture at all in the whole country of Taiwan. And then one group went to some farmers and said, you know, if you guys will grow organic, we will buy the food from you. And they said, oh, well, all right, you know, because they wanted to have a market. And then they opened one little store and they started educating people about the benefits of organic food. And so they had one or two farmers and one little store. And then this was probably about 20 years ago. And over the years, they keep adding more stores and more farmers and gradually expanding. And now this movement covers the entire island of Taiwan. They have, last time we were there about a year ago, they were over 100 stores that sell only organic foods and have lots of, it's all basically all vegan also. So, and most of the agriculture now in Taiwan has gone organic. So it's really important, I think, to realize that even one small group of people can have an idea and it can spread and spread and spread, and with time it can transform everything. So I see this happening here in India also. The seeds are being planted and it's spreading, and it's a very positive and benevolent thing that's happening. Thank you very much for that question. I'll take one last question, and this is it. So yes, sir, go ahead. So the question, I think, if I could hear correctly, was about certifying organic foods. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think essentially there should be some kind of a reputable agency that does certify organic foods. In the United States, there are a number of those agencies that are licensed to certify organic foods, including now the government as well. But that's something that I think as the movement grows, there will be a certification, because it's important that there isn't corruption, that people say it's organic, but it's really not. And I think this does happen in many countries. There's corruption, and even in the anywhere. I mean, sure, in the United States there's corruption too. But the best thing to do actually is to grow your own food, or work with people who are growing their food. I see there's farmers markets that are growing up in India, and just direct. When you know your farmer a little bit, or you can grow some of your own food, you can grow sprouts. We can plant a few trees, plant a few tomatoes, plant a few peppers or cucumbers, or have community gardens perhaps. There's quite a bit of land. I think, to really get connected again to the beauty of growing food and supporting farmers, outside the city or wherever they are, and create systems that do that. We have many of those that we've seen. There's something. A system where you make a subscription with a farmer and guarantee that you'll buy, organic food every week or twice a month or something like that. So the whole idea, I think, is to develop trust and to create a grassroots movement based on more sustainability and local cooperation. And I think if we really care about this, it'll happen. That's really the main thing. But that's a great question. Yeah, thank you for that question.
Can I say something to this?
Yeah.
We always ask people to certify organic foods. I think it's high time we ask the government to ask people who don't make organic food to say it's not organic. You
Right.
know, it's like, why are we asking the genuine people to go through all this process and letting the wicked ones get away? We should actually be asking the companies that don't make organic to say, oh, this is not organic.
Warning, non-organic.
Yes, warning, non-organic.
Right, that's a great
Right?
idea. Right.
And like you said, if you really want organic, you'll get it, because if you genuinely want it. Where do you think I got these saplings from? So there's this gentleman, Titus. I don't know where you're sitting. Titus, can you raise your hand? Where is he? So I think he's not here. Okay. So Titus is a neighbor of mine, and he's just started growing organic food in his garden. So I realized, oh, he's such a lovely neighbor. And I got these saplings from him. He knows people who grow organic foods. Another neighbor of mine has a farm, and she grows organic. So, and now near Joggers Park in Viman Nagar, every Tuesday and Saturday, we have organic farmers getting food, organic, fruits and vegetables, yes. So if you really look for it, you'll find them. But you have to really want to look. And you connect with one, and it just grows. Because then you know you're keeping your eye out for it, yeah? And you can actually go visit their farms. If you're interested, get in touch with me. I'm in touch with a lot of organic farmers. I can put you on to them. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for being here. Much love to you, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. A big round of applause for Dr. Will Tuttle, for Madeline, for Philip, and for Shankarji. Thank you. We just have a short 1-minute video to play. Please sit down. Just a short video.